Today, we're going to explore a really confusing reality, the reality of staying in a relationship that you know deep down just isn't good for you. I mean, we've all seen it, right? Or maybe you've even lived it. It's that dynamic where you can literally spot the red flags, you might even make a firm plan to leave, but somehow you just keep getting pulled right back in. So you really have to wonder, how is it that highly educated, resourceful, and fiercely autonomous people find themselves entirely unable to walk away from a toxic dynamic? It seems like a massive paradox, doesn't it? You'd naturally think intelligence and capability would be the ultimate shield against bad relationships, but as we'll see, that's not exactly how it works. To answer that, clinical psychologist Rick Hansen asked this really profound question. What is the good within you that keeps keeping you entangled in what's bad for you? And wow, that completely flips the script. It removes that heavy shame you might be carrying around, explaining that very often it's actually your absolute best qualities that keep you trapped. Think about it. The things anchoring you to a bad situation are often incredibly wholesome, virtuous traits. It could be your immense empathy for their past wounds, or maybe it's your tendency to unfairly take the blame just because you want to be a good person who owns their mistakes. Sometimes it's a deep, unwavering belief in their potential to change. Or, and this is a big one, it's the normalization of volatility from childhood. Like, if you grew up playing the peacekeeper in a chaotic house, you'll slide right back into that role without even realizing it. The point is, being stuck doesn't mean you're weak. It often just means your strengths are being used against you. This brings us to what's perfectly described as the spookometer. This is that visceral kind of animal gut instinct that acts as an internal alarm system. It warns you that someone lacks true care for you. Even when a person is saying all the right words and they're incredibly charming on the surface, your spookometer goes off. It's basically your body telling you, hey, you are fundamentally being used here. When your inner alarm starts buzzing, I want you to ask yourself this ultimate litmus test. Do you feel bigger or smaller after an interaction with them? Really think about that for a second. Healthy relationships will obviously have conflict, for sure, but a toxic power dynamic inherently shrinks you. You leave the interaction feeling depleted, empty, and like you constantly have to somehow earn your way back into their good standing. Now, clinical psychologists often point to something called the dark triad traits. This is a highly problematic combination of three things. First, narcissism, which is basically a fragile sense of self that needs constant external validation. Second, Machiavellianism, which is covert manipulation. And third, psychopathy, meaning a total lack of remorse. The absolute crucial takeaway here is that you should judge a person by how they act under pressure on a bad day, not just on their best days. I mean, anyone can be lovely when everything is going perfectly their way, right? And dealing with these traits creates this crazy emotional whiplash in toxic relationships. It's like a harsh rubber band snap between idealization and devaluation. One minute it's all, you are an absolute genius, I love you, you are perfect. But the second you set a boundary or, stop catering to their needs, it snaps violently to, I hate you, how dare you owe me. That wild emotional rubber band snap brings us right to trauma bonding. Think of this like a slap machine style of intermittent reinforcement. You literally never know if pulling the lever is going to get you a jackpot of affection or a total loss of rage. We know from behavioral psychology that this kind of intermittent reinforcement is highly addictive to our brains. It ties pain to reward, creates an incredibly deep attachment to the toxic person, and just leaves you feeling like you are constantly walking on eggshells. Another massive red flag you've got to spot is fast-forwarding intimacy. This is when someone artificially speeds up a connection, often called love bombing. They skip all the normal, foundational relationship building just to create a false us-against-the-world dynamic. You might feel like absolute soulmates after just a week, but the real functional goal here is to quickly isolate you from your external support networks so they can have total control. Let's talk about one of the most insidious tactics manipulators use to evade accountability. It's called the fuzz. Think of it as a dense word cloud released by an inky squid. It's a tactic used by people who completely refuse to be pinned down about their values, their boundaries, or their agreements. They rely on semantic debates, fog, and really evasive language to ensure you can literally never get a straight answer out of them. But the crucial point here is remarkably simple. Adults make agreements, and then they keep them. Healthy adult relationships require clear, direct requests and reliable follow-through. They absolutely do not require playing 13-year-old semantic games where you have to debate the definition of a basic word just to feel safe and respected. So if you're wondering if you're dealing with a fuzzy person, look for these hallmarks. Are they constantly debating exactly what happened? Are they somehow explaining why their bad behavior is actually your fault? Do they constantly refuse to clarify expectations, acting like some sort of gaseous cloud to evade simple requests? If so, recognize that they're doing this intentionally to make you doubt your own perception of reality.
Now, when you can't immediately cut contact, say you're dealing with a coworker or a co-parent, you need the gray rock method. You essentially become entirely boring, neutral, and completely uninteresting. The goal is to starve the manipulator of the emotional reaction they are constantly fishing for.
A great way to think of it is big steak versus dry chicken carcass. When a manipulator pushes your buttons, they are looking for a big, juicy, emotional reaction. That's the steak. When you use the gray rock method, you hand them a dry chicken carcass. Now, a quick warning though, this will often cause an extinction burst. They will completely freak out and escalate their behavior at first because you've stopped feeding them what they crave. You just have to stay neutral. And when it is finally time to actually pull the plug, use no drama communication. Keep it brief and emotionally neutral. Clearly state your boundary or your decision. Crucially, do not engage in blame or debate. Remember, they love the fuzz, so do not step into it. And finally, safely step away and end contact so you can cleanly sever those ties without feeding the chaos. Please remember this. You don't owe them anything. You have already given your pound of flesh. I want to firmly reassure you right now that your duty to yourself absolutely must come before your duty to a toxic person. You've put the work in, you have tried, and you do not require their permission to leave and protect your own peace. Here is your practical toolkit for staying extracted. First off, find new hobbies and new friends. Creating a rich new life naturally crowds out the old toxic one. Second, write a warning letter to your future self right now while you have clarity. That way, you can read it when you inevitably feel tempted to reach out. Third, lean on a calm, trusty confidant. And finally, replace your shame with healthy anger and grief. You were taken advantage of. Your anger is valid. Keep this incredibly hopeful truth in mind as you move forward. The problem you left really diminishes in the rearview mirror as you step increasingly into the good life you now have. The peace, the clarity, and the genuine connection that await you on the other side of a clean break, they are absolutely worth the difficulty of leaving. We're going to end this explainer with a deeply provocative thought experiment. If you knew the next 12 months would be exactly like the last 12 months, what would you do? This is your one and only life. The sand is flowing through the hourglass. Don't spend the next year waiting for a bad situation to magically fix itself. Take agency, trust your spookometer, and step toward the life you absolutely deserve.